Hello, everyone. This is Corinne Lafont, your favorite radio host, your only radio host, and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean on Between the Lines. And you know how I always start my show off with gratitude, or some people will say thankfulness. I am so thankful to be here. It's the 5th day of January, believe it or not. All of y'all who were celebrating Christmas just last week. Yes, and the New Year. Yes. What do you call that? The ball in Times Square and all those sort of things. Yes. Time is really flying by, and we should be grateful or thankful for still being here, the 5th day of the year. I'm thankful. It's a beautiful day here in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm honored to have with me Norman Bacal. He's on my show today to talk about, let me just make sure that I don't say the wrong thing, to talk about his book, his new book, Odell's Fall, Love, Jealousy, and Deceit. So let me tell you a bit about Norman. He has a lovely book trailer that I'm going to feature a little bit later after we start talking, but let's get into knowing Norman a bit. As he says, you can call him Norm. So in between, I may say Norm or Norman. Either way, he's going to answer. So Norman Bacal is the author of the non-fiction debut bestseller Breakdown, about the meteoric rise and devastating downfall of prestigious Canadian law firm Heenan Blakey, founded the Toronto office of that firm in 1989. In 1997, the author became the national co-managing partner of the firm and built it into a national and international force. Bacal brings to writing his experience as one of Canada's leading tax attorneys in the entertainment business, so please check him out. He helped to finance countless Canadian films and television programs and a number of Hollywood studio pictures. Bacal retired as managing partner in 2012. In addition to writing, Norman is a frequent speaker at law schools and forums. He regularly delivers keynote speeches at corporate retreats in June 2019, which was recently, and has taken part in several roundtable discussions featuring prominent experts in firm management, growth, and development. Some of his topics include, among many others, learning to lead, building a firm, the importance of culture and values, and building a career. To schedule a speech by Norman Bacal, you can visit his website at normanbacal.com. Born in Montreal in 1956, Bacal graduated from McGill University Faculty of Law in 1980. He currently resides in Toronto with his wife, where he says it's freezing, or almost freezing. His wife Sharon, a portrait artist. So you see, there are a lot of creative juices flowing in the family. And between them, they have 4 children. So we're going to be talking about Odell's Fall. And so welcome, Norman, to Between the Lines.
Oh, hi, Corinne. Nice to be here. And thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, I looked at your website to kind of get a bit familiar with you, and you're into law. Now, can you tell me, why is a lawyer writing fiction books?
A very good question indeed. Well, and I could probably go on for 45 minutes explaining it, but I'll try to keep it short. The one thing I would have told you when I was 40 years old, actually, I was on vacation and reading The English Patient. And I don't know, perhaps your readers or you may be familiar with that book. It's written by another Canadian author, Michael Ondaatje. And I read that book, and it was one of the most beautiful books I'd ever read. And I resolved at that moment that I would and could never write a book.
Okay.
And I was certain of it because it was just because I could never write at that kind of level, and I knew it. But then later on, I thought back on it. I was also sure, that I could never finance a movie or a television show, and I was certain I could never run a law firm. But I've done all those things.
Exactly.
And I began to write Breakdown, which was my first writing experience, not with the intention of writing a book, but I was one of those people who, throughout most of his career, only knew success. And I felt very fortunate. I really thought for many years God was looking over my shoulder and keeping an eye on me. And until 2013, it was a year after the end of 2013, it was a year after I'd stepped down from leading the firm. And under new management, the firm dramatically collapsed. It was the greatest failure in Canadian law firm history. And really what I had spent virtually my entire career, 35 years doing, and 25 years of that building, was suddenly gone. And it was a devastating loss for me. And as my wife put it, I had become a very angry person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I wouldn't compare it, to losing a child or a family member, because I can't begin to imagine what that pain is. But it was very painful when your entire existence suddenly disappears, or you believe it. Everything you thought you were is suddenly gone. So I had to adjust to that. It was my wife who looked at me and said, "You've become very angry, and you need to process your anger and really my grief at the loss." And she said, "So here's a pen and a notebook. Start writing." And I figured it was either that or see a therapist. Those are my options. So I started to write, and really the writing was
actually had a very good therapist on your shoulders there, your wife.
Oh, certainly. And if any of your readers were to ever read Breakdown, they'd see the real hero of that book, because it's a memoir. It really isn't me. It's my wife, Sharon.
Yeah.
Always there with good advice. So I started writing more as a catharsis. And then I thought perhaps it might be a memoir for my children. And then it was funny. I called up one of my clients who was a Hollywood studio producer, and I said, "Would you mind reading the first couple of chapters?" Because it was 750 pages.
Oh my!
And he said, "Well, he wrote back. He sent back some script notes and said, there might be a book here." So I called an agent, a literary agent who happened to be a friend of mine, and I explained to him the situation. He said, "Listen, call me back when it's 300 pages, because no one's that interested in your life, Norman." So that's what I did. When it was 300 pages, I called him back, and suddenly I had a book on my hand. Of course, it was 3 years of work, and I had to really learn how to write. I'd written, as a lawyer, you're accustomed to writing, but writing a book and writing for the legal profession are really two different animals. So I had
very
to
much so. You legal people are something else. You legal people are something else. I hate reading legal documents.
They're horrible. So that's it. So we're used to writing very boring legal documents, and what I had to write was a very interesting story. So you could see you have to learn all kinds of skills. So really, I began to learn the skills of storytelling, and I worked with some very good editors. And Breakdown came out. It turned out to be a Canadian bestseller.
Wow.
So it's really 3 books in one, because for professionals, it's and for anyone else, really, it's for university level students. It's a story it's really 3 different stories. So story 1 is what they don't teach you in school that you need to learn in order to succeed in business, which is part 1 of the book. And part 2 of the book is for really for any person who's involved in any kind of leadership of any organization. And it's about what are the key elements of building an organization, because that's why, I started an office of 4 lawyers. And when we were done, we were over 600 in multiple countries, running 11 different offices. Wow. And how do you do that and manage to keep your culture and be a place where people want to actually enjoy coming to work every day? Wow. So part 2 of the book is really how to build the organization, and what are the elements of leadership that I learned along the way from some very good teachers. And then the third is a case study on how an organization can fail, and what are the things you need to look out for based on my experience. So from the writing, and then from a few years speaking about it, and I really had a chance of those 3 areas. So I've got students buying it, I've got managers buying it, I've got business owners buying it and reading it. And really, it's an education. It really allows you to focus on the things you're doing well in your organization and things you could be doing better. But you started with a simple question: is what got you into writing fiction?
Yeah.
And so what happened was, when I finally got through with Breakdown, I developed this habit of writing for 4 or 5 hours every day after work. And I had to keep feeding the beast. So it was my wife who said, "Why don't you go read some Shakespeare and get inspired?" because maybe you have a fiction in you. And so that's what I did. And I walked in one day. This was after fighting her for a while, because I really didn't, as I said before, I really didn't think I could write a fiction book. And I walked in one day and said, I've got it. I'm going to write about Othello, the modern day New York lawyer. So it's, the story of an African-American success story, although he happens to be Canadian by birth, but he's a descendant of slaves. And it's a story of his life struggle. He falls in love with the daughter of a white Alabama senator, and in that respect, it follows, its origins are in Othello. This is Odell, and his father-in-law is deeply against the marriage, and once they do run off and get married because they had to elope, bad things start happening to Odell. And it devolves into, I don't want to give any of the story away, it devolves into a murder mystery. But did I ever think when I was starting that I could write this? I had my doubts, but I decided to soldier on like everything else in my life and give it a shot. And when I sent the first draft to the editor who edited the first book, she took a read through it and she said, Norm, an excellent story for an amateur, which was like feeling the knife go right between my ribs. Like she couldn't have said anything nicer in a way that hurt me more. So she said, here are a few books you need to read about learning how to write fiction. And so I began to learn about how to develop characters and how to make them different, and really how to be them when you're writing, and how to write dialogue, because I had no idea how to do that. And it's funny, as readers, we kind of take for granted that if we had to do it, we could do what good authors do. And I discovered from hard experience that you can't. There are really things you need to learn. And so I spent 3 years learning how to do it, on the job training, and finally came out with the book that I was pleased with, that my editors were pleased with, and now the reviews certainly that are coming back both on Goodreads and Amazon are suggesting people are actually enjoying it. So, I'm proud. I'm proud and I'm happy.
I am quite happy for you, and congratulations on that. A couple of questions rolling around in my mind. One is, the first book, Breakdown, came as a result of a sort of therapy for you after the loss of the film. After that amount of work, and you felt a part of you was lost. It's so interesting that we attach ourselves to things and feel that if something happens externally that we are gone, because you said you lost your existence. And that therapy helped you to kind of bridge that gap and to heal, I believe, over the past 3 years, over the 3 years. And as a result of submitting that book, you started reading other stuff. I did Othello many, many years ago in school. I did literature. I can't remember how the story goes, but I remember Othello, and at least the title of the book. And
like most people, that's why I chose it.
Yes, I remember Othello. Yes, and you had to do some reading. I think you got a really good feedback from the editor. She was kind to you when she said that, even though it hurt you and stabbed you in the ribs, but she was kind as opposed to totally rejecting, and she did give you some ammunition, some tools to help you to get over that, to work on the skills. And I'm thinking to myself, persons who are listening or who will be listening to this, who also may be going through a similar scenario as you. And I'm asking myself, which is what I will ask you, what are the lessons you have learned from being a lawyer? Anybody listening, put yourself in a lawyer's shoe if you're already a lawyer, or it don't matter what you are. But it's coming out of your comfort zone, being a lawyer, being comfortable where you are, and then having to learn something. That process of moving from the comfort to uncomfortable. What are the lessons you have learned? Because you were sent additional tools and information from the editor to go back to the drawing board, to say you don't know enough of this, and you need to understand how this is done. Read this, do that, do this, do that. What are the lessons? Who has norm become now, years later, compared to the norm? I think that's really the question I'm asking. Who has the norm become now compared to the norm back then?
Well, I think that's been the story of my life, and I'll break your question because it's somewhat complex and into little bits. Mm-hmm. And I'll say the first thing I learned, which is we all face challenges in life, and we all face loss, and whether it's bruises or serious problems that we, there's nobody that goes through life unscathed in one way, shape, or form. And you really have a choice when you're going through this. And it's, you can either feel that you are the victim of the circumstances that you're suffering, or you can pick yourself off and say, I refuse to let this define who I am. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that and you reach for the higher power and just say, I know I have the strength to get through this. I just need to apply myself and learn some lessons and move on. Mm-hmm. That was, lesson one that I had to learn. I had to learn it fairly late in life. Earlier in life, it was about what I'll get to next, which is throughout the development of our lives, whether it's in our careers or other things that we take on, whether it has to do with how we deal with our friends or organizations or how we volunteer, there are always things we don't know. And that we don't know. And we really have a choice. We can say, I don't know how to do this, and therefore I'm not going to try. Or we can say, this is something I'm really keen about. And yes, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to learn whatever lessons I can, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to ask for help. So you mentioned it, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Kareem. Success in life is about moving yourself out of what you're comfortable with and into what you're afraid of. And you have to get over the fear. You have to accept that you are going to fail if you want to improve. And when I look back on my entire career wasn't about my successes. And certainly as a leader, it was never about my successes. It was about what did I learn from my failures and my mistakes. And Lord, if you read Breakdown, you'll see I made some doozy mistakes along the course of my career. But it was more about what did I learn from them and how did I grow as a person and as a leader and ultimately as a writer from all my mistakes. And if you can learn from that and grow and figure out how to make yourself a little bit better each time, what you find out is you're building on it. I mean, the other thing I discovered was there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Yeah. And probably the thing I learned the most about talking about Breakdown, not so much writing it, as the lectures that I gave and the responses to the questions that I've been asked along the way, is it's not so much, success in life, I discovered, isn't about the bricks and mortar. It isn't so much about your achievements. It's much more about what you were able, at least from my philosophy, what you're able to pass along to others. It's what I can teach my children. It's the help I can give to young professionals. And I post on LinkedIn once or twice a week, largely career advice for young professionals. Mm-hmm. And my goal is, and I remember along the line, the people who were there with a helping hand for me, or people who showed me respect at a point in my career where really, when I look back on it, I didn't deserve it. And those are the people who I remember. It's not who I beat or who I was victorious over. It's the people I remember at the end are the people who went out of their way to give me a helping hand. Mm-hmm. And, my view of life has become, and it was reinforced by this experience, all about how can I pay it forward? How can I pass along lessons to others and instill in them the exact same virtue? Mm-hmm. So, I ran a firm where my operating philosophy was, you have to come to work to have a good time, because what I want is for you to say in the end, I'm excited to come to work every morning.
That's right.
And, you know, I still run into some of my former employees, sometimes in downtown Toronto and sometimes in other cities. And they say uniformly that, you know, while they're upset about what happened, they all had to dust themselves off and move on with their lives after the firm collapsed. But they said pretty much uniformly it was the best working experience of their lives.
Yeah.
So I think the lessons for your listeners are, you know, it's push yourself and keep learning. There's nothing from your life experience that isn't of value to someone else if you can help pass that along. Yeah. And there's no harm in asking for help along the way, which is, you know, I've never hesitated to do it. People have been very kind to me. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I feel I need to pass that kindness along.
Yes. Wonderful lessons, especially now at the beginning of the year. Odell's Fall. What would you want to see happen with that book? It seems like a book made for a movie, and you have supported other films, etc. You have connections in that industry. You know, Breakdown may even end up being a fabulous movie or a series, a mini series on TV. What are your expectations or dreams, let's say, for Odell's Fall?
Really, I think everyone dreams that their book will become a movie. Mm-hmm. But from the reason I ended up writing Odell wasn't just to be another lawyer publishing a murder mystery, which is what this is. Mm-hmm. But I felt I had something to say to people outside of just providing an entertaining story. And I can tell you, a lot of my reviews are coming back. One in particular that I remember, it comes from one of my readers who gave it a very good rating and said, Norman, you owe me a night of sleep because I was unable to put it down. But I want to do more than, and it's very fast paced. It reads very quickly. There are all kinds of twists and turns, and you just can't guess what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. And I promise any of your readers, if they go to my website, it's normanbacal.com, BACAL. If you go to my website, the first 3 chapters, I think, are there for free. And I will challenge anybody to read the first 2 chapters and put the book down, because I think you can't. But more important than it's a fun read or it's a fast read or that it should be a movie, as far as I'm concerned, is are you going to walk away after reading the book and think about it? Are you going to think about what happened to Odell and the lessons? And are you going to think about how his story applies to your life? And if I can get you to do that, that's my real definition of success with this book. It isn't about how many copies I sell. It isn't about whether it becomes a famous movie. It's much more about, are you going to read this book and feel that you can actually connect Odell's story? And it's not just Odell, it's his wife Dee and a few other characters in the book. But are you going to connect with their lives in a way that you say, wow, I've actually learned something, or it's affected me emotionally in a way I was not expecting? That's how I define success.
I am actually bringing up right now, let me see if I can maximize the screen, the book trailer. So I'm just going to, are you seeing that?
Yeah, I'm.
Yeah, so let me see if I can just play that as you just spoke about it. Very nice. Very nice. Let me see
There
now.
we go. I'd read that book.
Well, you're the author.
I've only read it 150 times. So.
Like, right. 1 second here. Let me close that off and get back to you here.
Thanks.
Let me get back to you here. I'm trying to get back to you here. So stop sharing. Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Wonderful. So when you go to normanbacal.com, you can get, yes, I think I saw that. I was trying to get onto your website. Here we go. Let me see if I can get to that quickly and share that so persons can see where they need to go. Here we go. So quickly guide me.
There you go. Pick your book.
Oh, click the book. Sorry, I just clicked on.
Either one.
Yes. Let me see what happened there a while ago. All right. It's gonna take a little while to show up. All right, here we go. All right. And this gives you a little blurb on the, right? If you want to purchase the book, you can buy it from here, of course.
You can buy it from there. You can also pick it up on Amazon, and the e-version is available on Amazon.
Okay, and there is the, yes. There you can read a sample, yes?
There we go.
Is it downloadable by chance?
Yeah, it's downloadable on Amazon.
No, I mean the
first
sample.
3 chapters are, yeah, they're you should be able to read chapters 1 through 3 right on the website.
Okay, all right, fabulous. Well, this has been great. I'm glad to be able to talk about your book and for persons to be able to check it out. And like you said, you would buy the book even though you've read it 150 times. But this has been good. Well, Norman, I appreciate you doing what you're doing and getting people to come out of their comfort zone. And I think that's what 2020 should be all about. You know, getting out of your comfort zone. Yeah, you have been comfortable all along. It's a new decade. Do something different. And nobody's saying, yeah, nobody's saying to get all crazy and go all wild. Take it in baby steps. Yes, take it in baby steps. Yes, you know, because I know how scary it can be to be able to do something out of your comfort zone. And the good thing about it is that you have to have a willingness and an appreciation to just face that fear and keep moving either way. Yeah, keep moving either way. Any final words for the listening audience that you would like to share?
Yes, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I want to let them know that if they read it and they enjoy the reading experience, I've got another book that will be out probably this summer. It's a prequel to Odell's Fall.
You are not stopping.
And while Odell's Fall is about is a modernized Othello, the next one is going to be a modernized Hamlet. And and really the question that Hamlet is asking is the same one from the play, and that's to be or not to be. You know,
that is the question.
The challenge, and you know, is this life worth it? Is the question he asks when his father asks him to step up and lead. He has to decide: is he going to disappear and become a failure in life, or is he going to step up and become his own hero? So
that's the question for the new decade, Norm. 2020.
The question we all face: are we willing to step up or not?
Yeah. Are you willing to stay where you are? Are you willing to come out of your comfort zone? Are you willing to be a better version of yourself? Are you willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do? You know,
or the things you think you can't.
Yeah, all of that. This is the year for that. 2020, a new decade. This is awesome. I can't believe a lawyer like you, a tax attorney, a man who ran a successful firm, you're writing fiction books. What is going on with you, Norm? This is amazing.
The nice question that I'm always asking is, what's next? And the answer is always, I don't know.
I don't know. And that's a good answer. I don't know. I don't know. Because
a friend of mine was halfway through the book, and I ran into him yesterday, and he'd bought it. And he said, the one thing I don't understand, Norm, is where did you get all these ideas? He said,
Yes.
the legal scenes I get, but most of this is, like, where did it come from?
Yes.
And I said, the simple answer is, I don't know.
Yes. I don't know. But you pour it out of you,
That's it.
There's
That's it.
something
And
at
it's
work.
all in us. And that's
Yes.
the thing. We're blessed. We have all these talents in us
Yes.
that
Yes.
we really, if we challenge ourselves to find them, they're there.
That's right. It is there. It is there. And I love that point. I think that's one of the most important points on the discussion. We have to recognize that we possess all that we need. We have all the gifts that we need within us. It is not in somebody else. It is not in a store, in an app, in a software. We have it. It is just for us to say, I could do this. I could do this. And no matter what it takes and how long it takes, you just do it. Yeah? Just do it. It doesn't matter what your friends say, your family say. You don't need to seek permission. You just do it. Yeah? You might just surprise yourself, like how Norman did.
Exactly.
Odell's Fall People is available on Amazon and on the website. And of course, I don't know if Norman is still operating as an attorney. I'm sure you can check him out. He will not refuse you, just like he will not refuse me when I call on him. And say thank you so much to Sharon for being that support behind him, in front of him. Because if it wasn't for Sharon, tell her I give her credit, if it wasn't for Sharon, he wouldn't be heading to the library, checking out Shakespeare and his work. And of course, thanks to Shakespeare. If Shakespeare didn't write his work, there wouldn't be no Norman Bacal writing Breakdown and Odell's Fall. Yes? So
that's right.
So
and for you students out there who have a hard time with Shakespeare, that's the other reason I'm writing this series. It's so that you can pick this up, read it, and then pick up the play and say, oh, now I understand what Shakespeare.
Now I understand, because when Shakespeare wrote, nobody could understand it. You're like, what? Why doesn't he just keep it simple? My goodness.
Yeah, well, we're still reading him 400 years later.
Believe it or not, believe it or not. Thank you so much, Norman Bacal. It's a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing, and all the best. Let's keep in touch. Let's see what's happening with you on your books and the one to come, summer 2020.
All right, and thank you so much. It's been an honor to talk to you and to your audience.
Thank you.
All right, take care.